Here at Going Now, we're big fans of Multiverse, if you can't already tell. And when we were asked if we wanted to help get the word out about Multiverse and the many facets of it and the many people involved, of course we jumped at the chance to do so. And in doing so, we've created this great show for you here that you're going to see. And so, what is Multiverse? Well, here is the great Jesse Adams to tell you all about it.
We are a convention for fans from all backgrounds, any fans of science fiction, fantasy, horror, gaming, art, and generally just anything geeky at all. That's been one of the fun parts, is expanding outside of like traditional fandom, and because we realize that like people have different kind of stuff they nerd out about, right? It could be history or science or fountain pens, whatever it is. The common thread is that there's a strong interest in something that you want to share with people. So that's the point of conventions in my book, but also Multiverse in particular, is let everybody get together in an environment where everybody feels welcomed and included, like genuinely included. And it happens every October, third weekend of every October. This year it's October 20th through 22nd. In Atlanta, which I figure most people know, at the Westin Atlanta Perimeter North. All the stuff's at multiversecon.org.
For this episode, we welcome in Mason Adams. He is the art track director at Multiverse. He is also a very talented artist, illustrator, and storyteller himself. And he's helped cultivate and create one of the best art shows at any convention you will ever see, along with this year being able to create panels for the art track that will run throughout the convention. Then we welcome in the Legacies of Arnon Fantasy Series author, Paige L. Christie. Paige has been a vendor and a panelist every year at Multiverse since it existed. She also runs a nonprofit and is a proud founding member of the Blazing Lioness Writers, a small group of badass women writing badass books. Finally, we roll up our sleeves and get our hands in some glitter, glue, and paper mache as, oh my, we take a look at the arts and crafts room. So get ready for another great spotlight on the Multiverse Convention with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Yes, we're back with another spotlight on Multiverse. It's nice to see you all. Anita's here, says hello. Hello, Anita. And welcome. And I am super excited because I've had authors and filmmakers on, and now I get to talk to a true artiste, Mr. Mason Adams. It's so awesome to have you here, man. Thank you so much for doing this and joining me. I really appreciate it. I know I gave like a really good intro there, but tell everybody a little bit more in detail about yourself and who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. And first, thanks a ton for having me and for doing this. This is just super exciting. So a little bit about me. That how long do we have? I'm kidding. I'll keep it short. So I grew up in South Georgia with Jesse Adams, one of the folks who runs the con. As my brother, we grew up on a little farm, and I for whatever set of reasons, I took to drawing really early. And dabbled in a whole bunch of other stuff, but it's been drawing is something that I've done since I was literally like 3 years old. It's forever been a passion of mine. It's one of my favorite things to do. Always will be. And so that over the years, has taken a bunch of different forms, but here recently, and really actually since the first Multiverse, and in no small part because of it, I've really turned in him and have been doing a lot more, you might say, storytelling through my art more than I had done in the past. I did a lot of art classes through high school, ended up getting a degree in sculpture. That was, it still is very impactful even on the two-dimensional stuff that I do. But even through all of that, it was Multiverse that kind of helped send me off in a direction of narrative that I didn't realize I had been searching for, but I had been. And so it's been I guess kind of an internal homecoming, if you will. Like it's really been quite something. And I at this point in my life, I'm not all that far from 50 years old, and I feel like I'm a kid again, just really digging in over these last few years and doing stuff that I kind of had been seeking to do for my whole life. So yeah, it's yeah. So that's where I am now. I through a series of fortunate and unfortunate events, I've ended up living in Oklahoma City with a really great family and some excellent pets. Way too many animals. Some kids, I've got wife and kids and all that. So, but yeah, they're I can say they're very supportive and of my art making and yeah, so it's a good place to be. I'm happy doing all this stuff and
Nice.
art being a big part of it.
For an artist, showing their work is both gratifying and terrifying at the same token, right? And putting it on a wall and just having people walk by it and kind of look at it and gawk at it and comment on it, and you're standing there and you because you want to sell something too, so you have to be a salesman in a lot of respects as well. And of course, with Multiverse, people vote on their favorite art pieces as well. But I mean, there's not a lot of like heavy competition there, but it's still something that you probably keep in the back of your mind when you're putting stuff up there and what you're going to display and everything like that. But kind of take us through what it's been like, the art show from the first time that it happened at Multiverse to now. What's the evolution been like for you, and do you ever get more comfortable as the time goes on by putting your stuff up there, and have you developed a strategy for that?
Yes, and actually that's been one of the most intriguing and challenging and honestly frustrating but also rewarding elements of this. And it's kind of neat. So there's two different parts. Like, so I don't run the art show, and I think that's probably wise. I'm just a contributing artist to that, which makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. And it in that regard, it allows me to focus thoroughly on just doing the best artwork for the show and making the best presentation of it. And this has come up a whole lot in discussions over the course of my life, and also even on the panels that we've done about the artists' feelings about putting their work out there. I guess my personality just sort of defaults to I don't worry about, like, I've never been one to be concerned about what someone's going to say or think or whatever. And I hope that's not hubris, but some healthy level of confidence, but also, and this may sound bad, I just don't care. I very much want people to appreciate what I do. And generally speaking, the feedback is really good and really solid and supportive. Sometimes people will say stuff that one might take as negative, but I try to just take that as constructive criticism. And I've learned a lot from those kinds of things. And also just, whether even if it's not, specifically a derogatory thing, I just try to learn from all the commentary that I get back, the feedback that I get. And that in no small part has led to the evolution of how I've the two things, mainly the art specifically that I've done and the way that I've displayed it, kind of the approach that I've taken to display. Art wise, I started out, my first year, I started out just responding literally directly to Multiverse itself, in that I took the four mascots and then some of the other ones and just illustrated them. My attempt there was just to do something that was kind of a different take on a werewolf, an alien, the Kraken, just kind of not, I wanted not, to just put my own spin on those things,
and
it was
for people
great.
who aren't aware of what Mason's talking about, each track has its own like mascot, and so that's how they discern between the tracks a little bit. And there's a competition that goes on during the week for the mascots and everything like that as well. But I'm sorry, I just wanted to explain that to
No.
people who have never been before. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. Absolutely, yeah. So there's kind of like these. I love it because there's like visual icons of what's going on. You know, that always relate in some way, in some significant way, to the subject matter of the track. And yeah, it's really neat. I kudos to Allie and Jesse for thinking that up. So you know, so it was just a direct response to that, you know, and that turned out well. I thought, you know, like I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. I hadn't been doing a whole lot of art up until that point over the last several years, you know, for a list of reasons, just kind of playing around more than anything. And so that kind of snapped me into gear. And that was good. That was a really good thing for me to do, you know, just creatively in that. So that went well, you know, sold some stuff, got some really good feedback. Don't have enough time here now, but, you know, I got some really tremendous feedback from some folks who are, some folks who are schooled in art and some who are not. And, you know, about aesthetic stuff, or some of it was about lighting, you know, a variety of aspects of the art itself and of the display. And that actually, and I love this is one of my favorite things, that led to a panel that we're going to do every year at Multiverse, which will always be called "I Like the Colors and I Want to Lick It." I'm telling you, that's some awesome. Good content right there. Like it is always a really, really good, as you might imagine, a really colorful discussion. And so and it's and kind of the purpose of that is encouraging folks who are not, you know, super well versed in art as a discipline or in the art world. You know, it's encouragement to just go ahead and say what you're thinking, go ahead and feel what you're feeling, and go ahead and voice it to the artist. Because I know from inside me, but also from talking to pretty much every artist that I know, and that's a long list, everyone wants to hear that. Everyone wants those conversations. You want to interact, you know. You don't want to just art's kind of like writing. Art can be a very lonely vocation, you know. I mean, you're just by yourself in the studio and all that, and that's fine, but man, it is really nice to get out and chat with people. And so, you know, that first year came and went, and you know, I had I tend to be a fairly analytical person and a fairly organized person as far as like how I display things. And so one notable change that has happened over the years is like it was very rigid, gridded out, like it was really, really perfect. But in retrospect, it wasn't as lively as it could have been.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so you know, that's kind of evolved over the years a bit. Like, well, so it really was just this most recent a very recent recommendation that I got from a good friend and a professional artist about treating my display, the art that's on, you know, the panel on which the art goes, as its own piece of art.
Yeah.
And so, and I love that. I hadn't thought of that in all the years that I've been doing this. I hadn't thought of that. And this, I mean, going back to high school, I was doing art shows in like middle school, in high school, you know. And so that was the first time it actually clicked with me to do some things that are aesthetically pleasing in the same way that an individual piece of art might be. You know, put something up here and then something down here that relates to, you know, to make the eye bounce and move and all that kind of stuff. And somehow that had been lost on me up to awesome. Very recently from a and this person's, you know, directly connected to Multiverse and a big influence there. So, you know, it was tremendous advice. You know, I hung my stuff in a different way, displayed it differently, and it was a lot better, I thought, you know. And then, and so that's of course the art, like the show, the display part of it. But I've just continued to evolve. I did a series of illustrations of a story that I've been writing for off and on for a long time. Cool. Yeah, that's always really rewarding, and I'll always kind of bounce back into it and out of it and all that. And actually, Paige, who is on after me coming up here, has been influential in helping push that story along and making some, really great commentary on how that story works and structured and everything, which has of course led to some good stuff artistically as illustrations. And then and that was the next multiverse that I did, kind of primarily illustrating my own stories. And now I've launched off into some other, like, it's being really fun because I'm doing it's not sculpture, but it's dimensional in that I'm cutting paper. It's still very figural. It's still,
Nice.
narrative, and has, to do with like satyrs and nymphs and dryads and all, just all kind of stuff, seasons, and, there's all that kind of stuff that I guess comes from my country raising. But the the aesthetics are evolving pretty significantly, and the narrative, I feel like I'm getting stronger with the narrative aspect of things. And so yeah, it's just a joyful experience all the way around. I hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, and that's awesome. I love that evolution, and it's really cool because as artists, that's what we strive for. We strive for, as soon as we put something out there, to make the next thing we put out there a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better.
Yep.
And so that makes a lot of sense, especially when people see how the art show's set up. It's really just it's a white stucco wall that just basically is like one of those, fake walls that they put up, and then you run through. It's just like aisleways and aisleways, and so to make something aesthetically pleasing, with that, that's talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that evolution, you've garnered the director position as the art track director, and so and this year you guys you're doing a lot more panels, I've been told, this year than in past previous multiverses. So kind of take us through what somebody who would experience the art track is in store for.
Sure, absolutely. So so for some context, we did, like, the first couple of years we did well, the very first year that we did the art track was just almost like an off the cuff kind of thing that we put together, sort of unexpectedly, toward, well after the other tracks had been established, but as a test, like we just thought we'd see if there was some significant enough interest to develop it. And there definitely was. We had some really good panels, not a whole long list of them. I think we did 3, maybe 4, including the artist guest of honor interview, if you want to count that. And so that next year we did in effect a combination of panels and then interactive stuff, a demo, some guided drawing stuff, a painting, a guided painting thing that went over very well. But then we determined that it would actually it's going to make a lot more sense to have that in with the create track, and you mentioned some of that stuff earlier, the arts and crafts kind of stuff. So a lot of all the hands-on stuff is going to be over in create, where there's going to be cross-pollination. My assistant director, Amy, is going to be doing both. She's a tremendous teacher, and just very lively, very colorful, wonderful person. And Ed Laney and everyone in create is as well. So there will be some interaction there, but what we've decided to do with the art track specifically is to focus solely on panels and of some very specific types. One of them will be for kind of art for artists, conversations about what, and of course it's open to anyone who is either just interested or, thinking about, hey, maybe I might want to pursue some kind of career in arts or a second career, whatever that might be, to have seasoned artists and some new, relatively new, like me, to art as a profession or an avocation, and talk through all kinds of different stuff that's specific to the to how it works, from everything from how to organize your day, how to focus on what you're doing, and how to interact with publishers, how to interact with folks if you're doing a book, whatever. There's a whole bunch of different avenues to pursue and discussions to have about that. and then we're also going to do, and one thing I am incredibly excited about is, and we did it last year, and we're doing it again and again every year. My intent is to do it every year. It's social activism through art.
Oh yeah, nice.
That was one of the better attended and definitely one of the more lively discussions that we had.
I bet.
And it was, of course, we only had an hour. Like, we might need to make that one 4 hours. It was astounding and just rich. And oh man, it was one of my favorite experiences that I've ever had. And I do think we're planning to do a demo again this year. Which I haven't decided exactly what, or we haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do yet, but that's always fun. Seeing last year we did illustrating a superhero, and that was pretty spectacular. But there's a few different avenues we could go there. That's just always an interesting thing. It as an artist, I love watching other artists do their thing. It's just an intriguing thing to see and honestly, and this may sound a little bad, but I mean it in the best possible way. It kind of makes me nuts. Like, it's this wonderful scenario if I'm watching another artist, because I'm sitting there thinking like I would do this thing, and then they do something else. And I'm like, ah! I mean, okay, it's obviously it's there, but I just find that hilarious. And that came up, in panels and in discussions and stuff. I find it funny. But I believe we'll do that, and then there are definitely some just kind of some lighter hearted stuff, like the one I was mentioning earlier about I like the colors and I want to lick it, just
Right.
talking about just kind of talking about art and how it relates to people who just love art, like that you underscoring the fact that you do not need any kind of education or any kind of vocabulary or anything other than just a way to appreciate the art that you're seeing, and in order to talk about it, so that's kind of a brief overview, and of course there will be a few more really interesting panels. I've got some stuff that I'm cooking up, trying to get together that I'm not sure whether or not we'll be able to do it, but yeah, it'll be really great. And then the guest of honor interviews are always just really tremendous. You always end up learning something just way unexpected, really intriguing, really cool, and I have found inspirational.
There you go.
I've seen all the even at multivirtual, and then on through that, interacting with the various artists is in person when we have been able to, and then even that one year during COVID of the virtual one. Man, I'm telling you what, that just sitting for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever they turn out to be, with those seasoned professional folks who really have a lot to offer is just deeply inspiring.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be doing that too. Yeah.
You're under the guise of Vanessa, and she's not going to steer you wrong. But I am curious, have you looked at, because something unique about Multiverse that I think is very, very awesome about it is that the Friday nights and Saturday nights are usually like the let's let our hair down, have fun panels that are just outrageous and loud and obnoxious and shake the walls, and everybody's drinking and having fun. So I'm kind of curious if you looked at that aspect of that time period for your track by experiencing it through other tracks, and kind of, are you modeling some of that for the art track as well? Because I mean, the learn track, that would be hard to do with the learn track because it's educational, and even create track is going to be fun all the way through. But
absolutely, yeah.
But for like the art track, which is kind of more of a panelistic aspect of the con, are you looking at that and kind of trying to come up with something that is that when the color lick's going to happen and stuff like that?
Perhaps not that one in particular, as suggestive as that title is, and I love it for that reason. It's tame from that perspective, although so to answer your question directly, no, I haven't thought through that. As a matter of fact, this past time, we ended up having to we ended up with a lot of stuff in our room because of that, because we were doing the hands-on stuff. We had a copious amount of art supplies and like a projector, like all these things that really should be locked up. And so we ended up having to just lock the room. And we had briefly discussed this, the prior year, going, we could do some later evening programming, but we just kind of scrapped it given this kind of the security aspect of things. Just wanted to make sure that we were able to take care of all the stuff. And the room that we were in was kind of an awkwardly, it's not awkward, but it was just in a place that wouldn't fit particularly well for late night stuff. Kind of loud, right off the bar. So we didn't last year. And I, you just gave me an idea is what happened. Like in asking that question, I'm like, you know what? I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that we can get into art wise. I mean, obviously there have forever, not just for activism's sake, like there a lot of artists in a lot of ways have pushed a lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking of a sort of a potentially an offshoot to the social activism one, or something that's maybe a little less formal and a little more I don't know what exactly. I wouldn't say risque, but fun in some sort of later evening kind of way is definitely a possibility. That's a fantastic idea. So
for people who've never been to Multiverse and experienced it, so there's two levels. There's the gathering rooms and the game rooms at the top where most of the hotel activity goes on, and then below is where they have it's just like a hallway full of different tracks. And then poor old Mason and his track got put behind the buffet in the little room in the restaurant, basically, right behind the bar. And
right. It wasn't bad, and I will say, kudos to them and to us, honestly, the Multiverse team, for really making it actually work pretty well. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't conducive to some things, but it's all right. We can make it work.
But I mean, the cool thing is that you guys are really the extension of the bar at that point.
Yes, there's that. Absolutely.
So socially, it couldn't work out better for you guys.
That's true. This is a valid point.
I wanted to, before I let you go, talk a little bit about you and your art, because over the past week, getting this show ready, I do my due diligence. I look at, and I followed you on Instagram and looked at what you were doing, and it was something that struck me very interesting, which is something that they don't young artists. They tell young artists to stay away from oftentimes because it's the hardest thing to do, and that is portrait drawing. And you do a lot of portrait drawing, 90% of what I saw was basically there was a human being in or some sort of person, maybe not human being, but maybe like a minotaur or whatever. Yeah. But was that something that you were always really good at? Is it because that, like I said, knowing artists and knowing, how difficult little things like hair and just all the nuances of creating a portrait are, they really tell you that that's like an advanced class in a lot of ways for artists,
Yeah. So for me, I wouldn't say it's always been easy. It's always been the thing that has inspired me the most, because for me, doing art is about expressing my human experience, in if probably at just about a core level, it's, and perhaps not surprisingly, as a human, the things that the humans interest me more than any other single thing, and so, and I've always been very, very inspired by sports, by dance, by, just a lot of different aspects, not necessarily the more athletic disciplines, just the things that the human body can do, that you can express, and obviously including the face, as you mentioned, the portraiture. So I started early, for one thing. I just have been practicing this forever, literally since I can remember. One of my very earliest memories was drawing my grandfather. He was a mechanic, and I did a drawing of him working on something or other. I mean, it didn't look like much, but I was 3 years old, And so like it's always been with me, right? Like and so it is and will always be the main driving force for what I want to do aesthetically internally, and
Mhm.
also for the stories that I want to tell externally,
Mhm.
and obviously most of the time those two things are aligned, but then there's a whole lot of additional stuff that goes on internally. Like just a little window into how I do it, like as I'm working on stuff, um a lot of times this whatever story's happening in the picture is playing in my head,
Mm.
not just that one still frame of it, but like the whole thing, the atmosphere, the sounds, the smells, all the stuff. um, I wouldn't call it synesthetic directly, but it's not that far from it. Um, and so that's a big deal, and just forever will be. Um, it's just it's a way to emote. It's a way to tell story. It's all of those things. And I will say this is one of the coolest things that I think I ever learned, and it came to me from two different professors that I had over the course of time. Um, I think one of the things that allows me to render the human form effectively and like I guess you might say accurately or literally, where that's the purpose, um, is that I have learned from those professors and then from the practice is that it works best if you draw what you see, not what you think you see.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, and that would work for anything. Like the drawing exercise that I was shown by those professors. One time it was a styrofoam cup, and the other time it was a coffee mug for whatever. But the thing is, we all know what a coffee mug looks like or a styrofoam cup, right? But if a styrofoam cup is sitting in front of you, it's not a little rhombus or whatever that shape is. It's got
Mm.
some weird little oval, and it's got shadows, and it's got a double rim thing. It it's and it works best if you're trying to do literal stuff, the human form included, just to get rid of preconceived notion.
Mm.
I mean, that's always going to be there to some degree, but rendering stuff on paper or in paint or whatever often is very different from the image that one has in one's head. And so I
Mhm.
think if you can kind of snap that bond, if you will, and just sort of react to what's really there in front of you. And I work from life, and I work from like 2D images. I pull from a whole lot of different sources, but
Mhm.
it's always the same thing. It's always like, what does that actually look like?
Mhm.
It's not what I think a leg looks like. It's what this particular leg and that weird, running motion actually looks like.
Mhm.
So that I guess that's kind of the kicker.
You might really appreciate this then because Robert McKee, who does a story seminar, he's world famous for creating story and working 3 act structure into screenplays, and he does a story seminar, and he talks about something very similar to what you're talking about in that,
Really?
yeah, he talks about how you shouldn't be afraid with when you're writing a screenplay to just say somebody cries, but what do they do before they cry? They usually are contemplating it. It usually builds up. Something emotional happens, and then contours in the face change, and then the expressions change, and those things, you should never be afraid of capturing those things within the writing itself, because if you
Mm,
do, you're touching upon what every human being experiences, and thus you're relating to the audience, and then you're also creating an image that can't be falsified. If
mm-hmm.
you say somebody cries, an actor can take that and just do what they do with it, and it may not be exactly what you're trying to convey in that aspect
Mm-hmm.
of it, because it might be an angry cry, it might be it might be something torturing to them, it might be something that
Yeah.
they don't want to do, and so all those things matter in the moments before the actual crying happens, that
Yeah.
creates it, and observing that and seeing that within yourself. He says to spend time drawing your emotion to some kind of emotion, and just sit and watch yourself in the mirror and see what you do, and you should write that down, is what he usually
Oh
says.
man, that's beautiful. I need to look that. I was, if you can at some point send me some of that stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
that's brilliant. Oh, that's really brilliant, and gives me ideas. Wow. Okay. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I figured you'd appreciate that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool what you said. I really love that. And the other thing, real quickly before I let you go, the aspect of drawing emotion and putting that out there. I'm curious, from now evolving into a storyteller, how you've kind of, has that changed how you approach the still image that you're creating, in terms of what emotion you're going to present in that, or is it, do you tell the story through the art you've already created? Is
You
that
know,
kind of
I think it's more the vice versa. You know,
uh-huh.
like since I have such a facility. I mean, I've done tens of thousands of drawings, right? Like,
Yeah,
so I've been doing this forever, and so like that just feels like walking to me. It's just nothing. You know, it's just
yeah,
like breathing.
yeah, yeah.
It's just there. Um, and so the, as far as the emotive stuff goes, right, like, so like the structuring of the face and the motion and that kind of stuff. Now color is a whole different thing. Like, that's like,
Yeah.
drawing out an emotion through the atmosphere and the color, that's kind of a different, that's a whole different thing. But um the I have noticed though that the reverse is definitely the case. Like, because I spent a lot of years, like, I'll try to make this really quick too, I know we're running out of time. So I had this dream back in 1999 that was this ridiculous, epic, just, it felt like it lasted 1,000 freaking years.
Awesome.
And it was a very clear, like, a remarkably vivid story that had a really good story arc to it. Just, you don't often have those dreams. So I woke up and
Yeah.
remembered it, was like, man, this is too cool. So I jotted some of it down, and then have been kind of messing with it off and on for, like, a little over 2 decades. And so I have noticed that now that I here recently have gotten really back into directly um, delivering emotion and a narrative through a visual artwork,
Uh-huh.
that my story is better for it.
Nice.
Like, I mean, if we had a way to, like, actually put the visuals up, I could actually point to, like, specific, like, okay, I do have this one piece where this woman is descending to, like kind of smash into this dude who's, like, cowering back and his hands are bound, and it's like, it's like this, and you can't quite tell if it's a prisoner being released or what. um and I did that drawing, and then I went back and rewrote the chapter that I had written for that. It's like, man, okay, this is better now because of the, like, it's got, like, this old, like, corrugated tin backdrop and this weird little, like, the whole thing just worked better. I was like, man, okay, I got to go rewrite that. So
That's
the story's better now because of how the artwork happened first, in that particular case. And that's not the only um time that's happened.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, as we can tell, as we've gone over a little bit, you and I can
Sorry,
probably
Paige.
wax poetic about this a long time. So
Yeah.
I look forward to having a conversation with you in October, and
Yeah,
we'll
man,
sit down
seriously.
and have a real good conversation about that and
Let's do
art.
it.
And thank you so much for
Oh,
coming on and joining me. Tell
thank you.
everybody where they can check out some of what you do.
So it's just on, primarily on Instagram at Mason Adams Art.
Nice. Awesome. All right, Mason, thank you so much. We'll be
Yeah,
right
thanks,
back
Joe.
with Paige Christie, and we'll be right back. So enjoy this little break. Dear reader, welcome to this collection of stories where villains arise. And who doesn't like hidden surprises? We've all given that handle a twist and a turn. Each of these stories likewise has a twist. It could be quirky, it could be fun. It also may be very, very horrifying. But it's definitely not what you'd expect. These stories have villains who arise from conspiracy theories, some from urban legends, others from realms of spirits, and a few from the depths of your very soul. Wherever these villains may be hiding, I hope you enjoy discovering them. And as you turn each page in anticipation of the villain arising, that aha moment just might make you jump. Check out Hidden Villains Arise, now available on paperback and Kindle from the folks at Inked Publishing. Yes, Ink Publishing, a sponsor of Multiverse. We're very happy to help them get the word out about what they're doing, as I am with my next guest here, because she's one of my favorite humans on this planet.
Aww.
And I'm super excited that she's here joining me and hanging out with me and talking to me. So I know we did a little intro at the beginning, Paige, but tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, let's see. I am an author. I am the author of the Legacies of Arnon fantasy series. It's a 4-book series. I finished it in October. Yes, it's done.
Yeah.
No waiting. It's done. You buy the first book. The whole series is done. No waiting. If you're one of those folks who is worried about that, it's done. I also write some contemporary fantasy. Everything has a political leaning in that I am a feminist, and that comes through in the writing. So just fair warning. There's a bent to what I do, to everything I do. I am a Yankee. I am living in the South and have been for the last 25 years, but I'm originally from Maine. So I'm a little bit forward and I have lots of opinions, as Joe knows. I have opinions about everything. My day job currently is that I am the executive director of a soup kitchen and food pantry, which has made the last few years quite interesting and exhausting. So if I look tired, I am. And I have a whole lot of cats. And I finished my scotch during your interview with Mason, so I'm quite happy. So
Nice, awesome. You know, you've really you've been involved with Multiverse from the beginning, and in doing so, one of the things that I really want, because there's going to be authors out there that are kind of, or there's going to be artists out there who are going to be on the fence about coming to Multiverse, and should they spend the time to come to Atlanta. So especially if they're sellers, they like to sell their work and their artistry and things of that nature. And you've been a vendor there virtually maybe every year since it's been there. Probably You've had a table there. I'm kind of curious, and I talked to Rachel about this I think a couple weeks ago, and you know, as somebody who does a lot of cons like yourself and does a lot of tables, is there a different approach that you take when you go to Multiverse for a table? Is it the same approach? How do you approach vending at Multiverse?
Well, first I have to say that I have a background in retail. I had my own business and I've been in retail I've spent 20 years in retail. So for me, selling and vending is maybe different than it is for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think in general, as an author, selling, especially when you're not well known, I'm not well known. My work is well received, but I'm not as well known as, I'm no Brandon Sanderson or Octavia Butler or, somebody fabulous. My work is well received, but I'm not well known. So the first thing about selling at a con is that you're selling yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be somebody that people think that they want to dive deeper into their mind, because when you present your writing, you're presenting yourself in some way.
Yeah.
And Multiverse, I will say, Multiverse has had a hard road. Multiverse's first year was 2019, and then the panini hit, as I like to say. We got caught in the panini press. And Multivirtual was amazing, but the last few years have been kind of rebuilding. And this year, I think, is the first year that people are really going to come. You can already feel it. You can already feel it at the early cons, that people are really coming back onto the convention scene, and they're really like taking ownership of the space again and exploring and stepping out.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's maybe social IQ is a little bit lower than it was a few years ago. So that's something to be aware of. But So this year will be interesting. So the sales, as far as numbers and dollars go, at Multiverse have not been as high as they have been at other events.
Sure.
What's been fascinating to watch is for me in the as a vendor is the interactions with people are so lively. They're so true. There's an honesty that happens at Multiverse with the interactions that happen, and you're talking to people about real things. It's not just the sales veneer that you sometimes get when you're at an event. There's this real connection with people that the event is designed to encourage. And so what I've found is that every year that I've been there, people have come back, oh, I've really been looking forward to talking to you, and I wanted to tell you this about what I read, and oh, have you read this book, and oh my god, this happened in your book, and I really wanted to discuss it with you. And it feels really personal in a
Yeah.
way that a lot of cons don't. And as it's growing and building and people are building connections, sales have gotten better and better and better, but for me it's never about sales at a con. It's always about forming connections, whether I'm there as just someone who's going to con that day, or a vendor, whether or not I have a table. Like I'll be at another con in a couple of weeks now that I don't have a table at. I'm just going as a guest. So I'm not selling anything. I'm just there to be on panels and interact. So every con is different. But for me, Multiverse kind of fills all those gaps. I feel like, yes, I'm vending and that's super fun. Yes, I'm a panelist and I'm on these things and that's super fun. And yes, I'm there to see all the people that, honestly, being at Multiverse and getting to know the Multiverse team and the other folks like you who show up there has changed my life. It's such a welcoming, connective community that Multiverse always feels like coming home. And so everything else is secondary in my mind, if that makes any sense at all.
Totally. No, it makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
I mean, I've been going to cons. I mean, I haven't been to Dragon Con since 2018, but 2018 was my 22nd year doing Dragon Con. I've been doing cons for a long time. The only con I have a lifetime pass to is Multiverse. So if that says anything.
That says a lot. And you're the first guest I've had. Well, Mason, I could have talked to Mason about this, but we had other things to talk about. But you and Mason are actually the first pair of guests I've had on this show that I know of that spend the amount of time outside as much as you do inside, like I do. I mean, we're out there on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday we're all gone, but for some of us we're there. But the Friday and Saturday nights, I mean, we do the fun things that go on and interact, and we weave in and out of there. But that fire pit is a special place that I don't think a lot of people understand, that doesn't happen everywhere you go at these cons. So talk a little bit about what that brings, that camaraderie and that idea of it. And is that unique for you to Multiverse? Is that something you look forward to when you go to Multiverse?
Yes. It's really kind of hard to explain. What Allison and Jesse have created with Multiverse is very, very unique. And I got invited to Multiverse by someone who was involved at the very beginning, and just as, hey, I'm involved in this new thing, and I think you'd be a great fit. Why don't you apply as a guest? It's like, sure, whatever. I applied. I showed up first year, and I was there like an hour, and I was like, something's different than any con. Something's different, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I went to opening ceremonies. And by the end of opening ceremonies, I knew two things. This was the event that I'd been looking for my entire life as far as conventions go, and I was never going to miss one. Because the people that were present and the energy they brought, even in that half-hour presentation of who was there, who was in charge, who was running the event, who had voice, who had choice, who had presence, who was allowed to be heard, who leaped forward to be heard, was something I'd been looking forward my whole life. And that came out in the opening ceremonies. I was like, I will be at this event forever. And if I had not known that was the first year of that event, I would have thought it had been going on for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I was so excited to come back in 2020, Panini. But like a lot of cons did that year, everybody pivoted to virtual. I went to a lot of virtual cons that year as a guest, as a, as a panelist, as whatever. Multiverse did the best job of all the ones that I'd been to. You felt like you were really there with people. And then as that was happening, Jesse and Allison said, we feel this community forming and we need to keep this going. And so they started this Friday night Zoom call that anybody was invited to. Then the world was on fire and everybody was stressed out. And I was like, well, I had fun at the con. I'll pop in. And I don't think I missed one for a year and a half, the Friday night call, because.
Oh, we lost. Paige warned me that this would happen. Everybody, she's got wonky internet, so give it just a minute. She'll be right back. There she is. There we go.
I live in the woods of North Carolina, and I have the world's shittiest internet, so I apologize.
No problem. I just told everybody that you warned me ahead of time that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's like if like a raindrop falls, I lose connection. It's the worst. So if my cat runs by in the background, I'll probably lose connection. Apologies. But anyway, so the Friday night call happened, and it was like there was this fearlessness in the call where we were literally able to talk about anything that came up, and everybody was just welcoming and warm, and we could have hard conversations, and we could talk about what was going on in our lives and the world, and sometimes it was dad jokes, and sometimes it was politics, and sometimes it was what you're watching on TV. It's just that call to this day runs the gauntlet of whatever's going on in people's lives and whatever people's emotional needs are. And sometimes it's ridiculous and sometimes it's not. And I'm not even going to say, but anyway, it's just beyond. And so I got really close to a whole lot of people that I had either met for 5 minutes, or a few people that I'd known for a long time, a few people that I'd met for 5 minutes at the original, the first Multiverse, and a few people I'd never seen at all and in person. And when we all came back together at the first live convention after that, it was like I was with people that I had known forever. And it really was this impact, and we were all gathered around the fire pits out on the patio, and I'm sitting with people that a lot of whom I'd only ever met virtually, and we were all piled together on like 2 couches. Like there was no space between us. It was just, there were no barriers. That space that was created virtually was recreated on that patio. But because we were on that patio, it opened up and it allowed other people in. It wasn't like we had formed this insular little group. It was like we understood because of that we had to be open. Yeah. And so when you come to that patio on Multiverse, everybody's like, sit, here are Cheetos, here is chocolate, here is scotch, here is beer, here is, what are you doing? How are you? Where are you from? And it feels like there's just a space for everybody who wants to be there, as long as there's room on the couch. And if not, you can sit on the ground and somebody's going to braid your hair. And I'm a hugger, so you're warned in advance. I mean, Joe. So there's something about that space that just echoes all of what Multiverse is, as far as being welcoming to anybody who's willing to walk into it.
I totally agree.
And it takes courage, especially when you're someone who's never felt like you belonged, or rarely felt like you belonged, that your views on the world are different, that who you are isn't accepted by society. It takes a lot of courage to step up and say, hey, I want to slide in here. I want to step in here. And to have somebody go, I'll move over, come on in.
Yeah.
Is huge. And that is 100% what Multiverse strives to do all the time. It's not a perfect space. Nowhere is. But it works harder at it than anywhere else I've ever been. Mm-hmm. And that to me matters greatly.
It's the one place, it's the one con and the one place every year I meet like 5 or 6 new people that are lifelong friends now. I mean, it's just it's so amazing. And like you, I was introduced to Multiverse through the virtual. Vanessa had given me an opportunity to go into a couple of panels and look at it and be part and just experience it. And I thought the same thing you did. It was absolutely. I've been to I've done thousands of virtual panels at this point, and virtual cons and things of that nature. And well, thousands is probably stretching it, but hundreds. And doing that, and that whole year, like every weekend was a virtual con for me almost in that entire year. But doing that, when I thought it was the best run thing I'd ever seen. And then when Vanessa told me, yeah, we'd only been live one time before that, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. And then I met Jesse and Allison. They were so gracious to invite me to the next year when we went back to live in a pseudo capacity and meeting them. And it just, everything you're saying is just spot on. It just clicks, and you just feel like the moment you get there, it just feels different, and it is different, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who I'm constantly in touch with from Multiverse. Jesse and I talk a couple times a week. Liam and I talk a couple times a week. Reese Harp, who's an amazing actor, who shows up every year and I think is actually a guest this year for the first time. We talk a couple times a week. Mason and I talk about every other day. And so there's just this connection that forms with people, Rachel, Vanessa, Holly, everybody. It's just an amazing group of people. Nicole Kurtz, who runs the fantasy panel. Oh God, that woman is amazing. I can't say enough about the group of people that run this thing. And as a writer, to be in a space where, how am I going to say this? People understand story, either whether it's in art, whether it's in writing, whether it's in acting. I mean, there's some live readings that get acted out that happen there that are hilarious. But Jesse and Allison also understand the story that they're presenting to the world, the story that they're trying to tell about who should belong, about how to create space for people, about how to really listen. And by listen, I don't just mean blah, 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 I'm listening. I mean, really listen to people who are, who don't often get listened to. Mm-hmm. That's the story Multiverse is telling. And when you understand the power of words, when you understand the power of story, when you understand the power of what it means to see yourself in a new way, or to see yourself at all for the first time presented out there in the world, when you understand that and you try to take that from an abstract into a reality that happens in 3 dimensions for 3 days, that for me is huge as a storyteller, because I'm watching the story of this space unfold. And you might notice I'm a little meta, but that's just the way it is. So that is vital to me as well, because that's part of what's happening with Multiverse. And I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a space that is intentionally creating a tale of its own existence and a tale of accepting others in real time.
It's so aptly named. No, it's aptly named. Multiverse is aptly named because it connects the different aspects of different things all together and kind of flows as one, which is very, very unique for a con, especially in a space with a smaller group. I think that was the smart aspect of it too, that it's a smaller, tighter group in that respect, and it's a revolving door of people. It's not just the same 10 people we're talking about. There's, like I said, every year I meet 5 or 6 new people that I talk to every day, virtually. So it's very, very, very unique in that respect. I want to take the last bit of this time to talk about you, because you did just finish a series that you've been, I know, agonizing on ever since I met you. And I'm wondering, because I love talking to artists when they finish something and when it's complete, and it's never complete. Let's just be frank about that. But what was it like writing those last words for you? Did you feel a sense of completion? Or did you feel like a sense of loss? What did you feel in putting down those last words and finally realizing you finished this story?
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that. It's a good one, Joe. So for starters, I'll say that the final book was 3 years late. It was supposed to end. It was supposed to come out in the fall of 2020. Well, guess what didn't happen? I didn't finish it till the early 2022 because the world imploded. And so that last book was so hard to write because as not only a writer but a reader, when the author doesn't stick the landing. You can tell when the ending when an ending doesn't quite satisfy, and so it's hard enough to end a book, much less a series. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified when I finished the book because I was like, this is the best I can do for now. Because one thing about creating is you'll look back on something you created 5 years ago and you go, oh, I wish I'd done X. I wish I'd done Y, or I should have said it this way, or because you've learned and you've grown. And for what has been going on in my life, for what the story needed that I could provide for it at the time, I got to the end, I was like, I think this is good. This is the best that I can do. And it was sheer terror as I sent it to my editor. And I actually, I didn't send it to my editor first. I sent it to my beta readers who are the Blazing Lionesses, who you mentioned earlier. And I'm like, Joe found that picture of us. Oh my God. They are a pair of goddesses, and they are brutally honest with me. And I mean, and they will tell me the truth. And they both said, you do not need this chapter destroyed. And I was like, but I like that chapter. No. So, there were things like that happened. But they were like, you've done it. You've done it justice. It's okay. And I was like, okay, good. So off it went to my editor, who was like, this is really more intimate than I was expecting for a finale, but it seems to work. And I was like, is that good or bad?
Right. Could you be more vague, please?
Yeah, right? I was like, oh. So, and then I sent it to, I've been very lucky in that I fell in love with the work of an author many years ago, who I think is probably one of the most unrecognized genius writers working today. And it's a fabulous author named Janny Wirtz. And the book the series is The Wars of Light and Shadow, which she's been working on for 20 years. The final volume is in final edits. It's 11 books long. They're 1,000-page books. They are absolute works of genius. It is this series should be spoken of in the same breath as Malazan and The Wheel of Time and Tolkien. I mean, it's as good or better, in my opinion, than any of those. And it is nowhere near as well known. And there's a long story behind why that is. But it was reading her work that made her think that maybe the way I write, people would also like to read, which I had spent 40 years writing where I didn't think anybody would care. Mm-hmm. And so reading her work inspired me to start to put mine out there. And my editor sent my first book to her, unbeknownst to me. And she loved it. And she has endorsed all of my books. So I sent her the finale, quaking in terror, knowing that she would tell me if I hadn't done, when everybody else was like, yeah, it's good, you've done it, or this is more intimate, all the things that were said, but I knew that she would tell me. And when I got the email that said, this is a tour de force, you have done it, that is the moment that I actually felt relief, because before then I was just lost in a fog of my own doubt. And so now I'm like, now the problem I have is I've spent so long with those characters, I'm trying to write something new, and I'm like, keep drifting back to, well, I could do that. No, you're done. You've stopped now. So I don't know what it's like for other authors. I can't speak to other authors because I think I have a fairly bizarre system of writing. I'm not just a pantser. I don't even write anything in linear order. Like chapter 1 does not followed by chapter 2. It may be followed by chapter 18. I don't know, as I'm writing. And so I can't speak to how other authors feel when they finish. Maybe it's relief. Maybe it's, I know I've got it. For me, it was just, oh my God. And I'm just now, 6 months later, starting to feel like, okay, I actually did the thing. So we'll see. We'll see what the outcome is in the long run as people start to read through the whole series now that it's done. We'll see. It's because.
Oh. It's a great series, everybody. You should go check it out. I do have the links in the description to go check it out. So definitely go check it out.
Sorry. Yeah. But anyway, the last thing I wanted to say is as an artist, once you create something and you put it out in the world, it's no longer yours.
Yeah.
It belongs to the people who see it, who read it, who experience it. And that is, the power becomes theirs to see it how they want to see it and to take from what they want to take from it. And getting back to Multiverse, because, we're kind of here to talk about that. I think that's what Jesse and Allison have done in creating Multiverse, is they have put this thing out there, and now it is for the rest of us to take ownership of it.
Yeah.
And to make it joyful and beautiful. And that's what's been happening. So, yeah.
Well, my life is better because you're in it, and I really do appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me about that. I had other questions, but we'll save those for another day. We'll talk. We'll get more deep. I'm going to sit down with you, and we'll get to the skinny of this series when it all comes out, and we'll dissect it and everything. But yeah, and we'll talk more about your craft and everything like that at another time. Because I just think you just dropped the mic there and it was perfect, so I don't want to ruin that moment, and we'll just move forward. And so thank you, Paige, for being here and doing this for me. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in a few weeks, my friend.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, and send me that info. We'll make things happen.
Yeah, we'll talk. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and so everybody, just one more bit of business before we take off and say goodnight. So as we've been doing with this show every week and every time, we have been highlighting certain aspects that are unique to Multiverse, and something that so this is my lifelong mission, right? I've made this like my purpose at Multiverse, and especially this year, I am definitely going to try and make some time to make this happen. But ever since I discovered this aspect of Multiverse, I've been trying every year to go and experience it for myself, which I have not done yet. And like I said, this has become my life mission. Jesse and Allison actually know this, and they're probably going to nudge me to the room pretty quickly as we get going during the con. So, and also Vanessa knows this too, and she'll probably take me off a panel just to make sure that I have time to go do this, but that's fine. I'm really excited to introduce you to something that I think is really, really special about Multiverse, and we'll do that, and then we'll say goodnight. So here you go, everybody. And now another reason why, among many, you should be attending Multiverse. Season 1004, the Arts and Crafts track. Come join us in the Create and Art tracks for a weekend of creative fun. Learn new skills and take home your own unique creations. The schedule will be posted for a listing of hands-on workshops on the Multiverse site. And remember, you can stop by the Create track for open crafting anytime. The room is open. We hope to see you there. We hope that you enjoy all the fun that comes with creating. What are you waiting for? Join us today. Go to multiversecon.org and register to become a member of the Multiverse. And that's our show. Be sure to come back next week. We've got another great lineup for you. And we've got Sean Hillman and Darren Kennedy joining me next week, so that should be a fun show to do. I'm looking forward to it, and we will see you then. because as you know, it's always time to go indie now.